I've noticed some people online talking about how Dragon Ball DAIMA was pointless. Well, was it? That's what I want to talk about today. In order to understand whether Dragon Ball DAIMA was pointless or not, I think it's important to understand why Dragon Ball DAIMA was created in the first place. And it all comes down to, well, corporate greed. I mean, it kind of does, but it goes a bit deeper than that, right? And it really comes down to wanting to target a new demographic, which is like younger people, and creating a foundation for what's to come in the future. At least that's the way that I see it. And as evidence, I can show you an article that was published back in February. I did an entire video about this article where Akio Iyoku, the guy behind Dragon Ball, was interviewed. And in it, he talks about how they were trying to target the GT generation in Dragon Ball DAIMA, right? So basically the people that watched it when they were kids and now they're in their 30s, now they have kids, or at least many of them do. And so by creating this show that targets them, they have the parents bring in their kids into the new, Dragon Ball fandom, right? And for the most part, this seems to have gone well, I guess. Now, we don't have concrete statistics here and there, but in another interview that I came across with Akio Iyoku from February, he talks about how there was a certain streaming service where Dragon Ball DAIMA was doing very well in the kids genre, in the kids category. So again, we don't have all the details here, but it seems like, at least through that answer that he gave to a specific question, he was pretty happy with what Dragon Ball DAIMA was doing with this younger generation, target goal that they had. And then going off of that, of course, Dragon Ball DAIMA, everybody turned into little kids. What does that mean? Well, that means that they can create a lot of cute merchandise. And look, cute merchandise is popular with people in Japan. I know it's not as popular with like the people that really like, for example, Broly, muscles, and crazy hair and that kind of stuff. There's a certain demographic within the Dragon Ball fandom that likes that aspect, right? Like raw masculinity and these guys fighting with their shirts off and hugging each other. I don't know if they hug each other, but you know what I mean, right? And then there's the demographic that likes the comedy and likes the nice character moments. There is some overlap. I like both sides of that. But again, within Japan, for example, there is the demographic that really likes cute characters and all that stuff. And Dragon Ball DAIMA allows them to target that demographic, right? That kind of person may not buy a figure of Broly that weighs like 4 pounds and is like 12 inches tall and it's his muscles rippling, but they may buy cute, squishy keychains of all of the cute mini versions of the Dragon Ball characters. So from that perspective, Dragon Ball DAIMA expanded the reach that it had. And so I think that it was quite a success, right? Because they were able to get all of the mini versions of the main characters, plus, of course, like the new characters. So that's a whole wealth of new characters, new designs, new merch that they can produce. In terms of the demographic within Dragon Ball that likes the fighting and the new transformations, they did get some stuff, right? We got Super Saiyan 4 mini and adult Goku. We also got the Super Saiyan 3 Goku, again, some slightly different version. We got Ultra Vegeta 1. We also got Super Saiyan 3 or / Ultra Vegeta 1 mini. So that's all going to get turned into merch, right? And I've already seen Super Saiyan 4 Goku mini, I believe, SH Figuarts, right? SH Figuarts. I don't know if you can see it, but there's an SH Figuart like down there. There's a Goku behind me down there. That's a super popular line of figures right now, in case you're not aware. They sell for a lot of money. Like some of them, right? Some will sell for like $60, $80 and that's the primary sale. That's the retail price. And then on the secondary, they can sell for a lot more. SH Figuarts is like crazy popular right now, or it has been for the past few years. But aside from that, there's also the Ichiban Kuji line, which is kind of the stuff that I like to collect. I'm not a crazy collector, but I have the figures behind me. Those are awesome figures. They're very detailed. And there's, of course, Daima Ichiban Kuji that have already been announced. I think in Japan, they may have even come out. Some of them have already come out. And then on the digital front, of course, we are getting these new characters, the Tamagami, etc., in things like Dokkan Battle and DLC for other games, and they will continue to pop up forever. As long as Dragon Ball is around, we will continue to see what we got in Dragon Ball DAIMA in games, in whatever else they can make money off of. It will be there. So For a 20 episode series to introduce the amount that they introduced, I think it's pretty notable. And that is going to continue bringing in money for Bandai and Toei and whoever else is involved with making money off of Dragon Ball. On top of that, I also still think that they're going to tie in Dragon Ball Daima with Super. Until we get definitive proof that they are not going to do that, I think it's only logical for them to tie it in with Super. I know there's a couple of issues that have been left hanging unresolved at the end of Daima that seem to suggest that they're not in the same continuity, but never say never until it's definitive, right? Until we know for sure. Why? Because what I'm seeing is that Toei, or well, really it's Akio Iyoku, the guy that runs Dragon Ball these days, he's taking a very Disney Star Wars approach to things. And what I mean by that is that, of course, when Star Wars got bought out by Disney, they said none of this like non-movie stuff except for like this one animated series is canon, right? All those books, gone. And they started redoing everything. But they were taking the stuff that they like. They were taking the stuff that they thought people would want to see again and bringing it in little by little. And that is kind of what we're seeing with Akio Iyoku. For example, Broly is perhaps the best example of this. Even Frieza is this to some extent, although it wasn't like he was brought in like from a non-canon source, like one of these 90s movies in Dragon Ball, but he was brought back to life because he knows that people love this kind of stuff. Like Toei, everybody knows that people love Frieza, right? He was maybe the best villain, or he's definitely up there, and his stuff sells. And so, you know, that was a surefire hit, right? Resurrection F, even though it certainly wasn't one of the better modern movies, but it's Frieza. So people are going to go spend money on Frieza and Golden Frieza and now Black Frieza and this and that. And from a business perspective, that has been a success. And now we got Super Saiyan 4 being brought into, presumably, quote unquote, canon or the main timeline, whatever word you want to use. So that suggests to me that Super Saiyan 4 will probably come back at some point later in the Dragon Ball Super timeline, but we don't know for sure yet. We may get a line at some point that says something about why Super Saiyan 4 wasn't used in Super up until now. I think that's totally possible. We've seen that kind of stuff done before with Super and now Daima and all that, so that would be nothing new within the world of Dragon Ball, within the franchise of Dragon Ball. And finally, I think Dragon Ball Daima was, of course, a nostalgia trip and commemorating the 40 years and all that, although that really wasn't the intent at the beginning. It ended up being that. So this was a little bit of fan service for the fans. Some people liked it, some people didn't, but that was the intent to some degree, right? Including all those Easter eggs and all that stuff. And also building a foundation for what's to come, right? Because if Dragon Ball Daima does end up being part of the Super continuity, and then we get some kind of continuation, some kind of connection with Daima, well, that's Super building off what was established in Daima. And then that's going to be motivation for people to go back and watch Daima if they didn't now, right? If they didn't during the original broadcast. And that's the power of a long-running franchise, right? Compared to something that has one season and then they determine whether it was a success or not. If it wasn't, it doesn't get a second season. This is Dragon Ball, right? So it's going to continue whether Daima does really well or mediocre or not so well. They're going to find some way to continue it. They're not going to give up on the massive money-making machine that Dragon Ball is. And so by continuing to produce Dragon Ball, whether it's the games or the anime or the manga or whatever it is, that continues to create opportunities for people to discover Daima, and it motivates them to go watch it. And then maybe they fall in love with, like I said, the mini versions of the characters or Majin Ku and Majin Du, and then they want to buy the figures and play the games and all that stuff. So that's a long-running franchise, right? It's a different approach from a short one time, one season. We don't know if it's going to continue or not. It all depends on the success of that one season. So I think it's important to keep that in mind, that Daima is going to be a foundation for this other new aspect of the Dragon Ball franchise, the Dragon Ball story, the Dragon Ball continuity, which will likely be fleshed out a bit more or built off of or continued in some way in the future. So from the corporate perspective, I think that they mostly succeeded. Yeah, I'm sure that they could have done better. They probably could have done a lot better on the reaching the international market, the English-speaking language markets. They had problems with non-exclusivity, right? Like Netflix and Crunchyroll and that kind of stuff, like competing and all that, and not enough coverage at the beginning. I know that people have done videos about that. But for the most part, it seems like, hey, the merch is selling. People have been mostly positive on Daima, even though there are people expressing their discontent with some aspects, myself and some people in Japan as well. But largely, they've managed to reach a new demographic. They've managed to establish a foundation. They've managed to make money and make more opportunities for making money. So yeah, I would say that there was a point and it was mostly a success. Now, when it comes to fans, that's a little bit different. And given that we don't know exactly how this is going to connect to Super, and we don't know even whether it will really connect to Super, although I'm standing by my hypothesis that it will until I'm proven wrong. So let's just put that aside from now, right? Like, if it turns out that it has nothing to do with Super, then you can assess this in a different way. But really, ultimately, I think it all comes down to whether you enjoyed watching Dragon Ball Daima or not. If you enjoyed it, then it was not pointless. There was a point to it. You were entertained for 20 episodes. If you didn't enjoy it, then yeah, it was pointless to you. You wasted your time. So that's really all it comes down to for you, the fan. At least that's my opinion. And for me, well, I mostly enjoyed it, even though there's definitely a lot of problems that I've talked about before. It was frustrating at various points, and I definitely think they could have done a lot better with the storytelling and characterization aspect of Daima. So for me, it was not pointless. I mostly enjoyed it, and I'm glad I watched it. Let me know what you thought. Drop me a comment down below. Do you think it was pointless? What did you like? What did you dislike? I've got more videos like this coming very soon. More edited stuff. This was just a quick video that I wanted to get out. But if you enjoy this, drop me a like, subscribe, show me some support so I can keep growing this, and I'll see you in the next one.